Hi, I'm XO, and this video is about one of my all-time favorite DOS games, Dungeon Keeper. Dungeon Keeper, where evil is good, came out in 1997. It was made by a little company called Bullfrog, and for those of you who frequent the Discord, you may know that I have a love-hate relationship with a certain Mr. Peter Molyneux. See, Peter Molyneux was behind a lot of games that I really wanted to like growing up. Populous, Powermonger, Syndicate, Theme Hospital, High Octane I even enjoyed, even though it was a throwaway title he made in 6 weeks. And then later on he went on to make games with other companies, such as Fable, Black and White, more recent Curiosity, and Goddess. And the problem with Peter Molyneux is he doesn't know when to shut the hell up. He hypes, and he hypes, and he will talk things up, and he is a snake oil salesman. If this was the 1800s, he would have a cart, he would come to town, and he would sell you water, and you would think it was wine. The dangerous thing about Peter Molyneux is I honestly don't know that he realizes he's lying. He gets so enraptured with ideas, excuse me, that he starts talking and making promises and hyping. And I think maybe in his mind he thinks it's either in the game already or he'll run back afterwards and be like, hey guys, I had a great idea, let's add this. Now, the problem with it is these things often don't get added. And so I could do a whole 20-30 minute video on Peter Molyneux's promises and his results. We do have a joke bot in the Discord. One of my main bots is Peter Molyneux. If you drop by the Discord and type in any game he made, Peter Molyneux bot will tell you all about the things that he promised in that game and what actually was in the game. And it's usually two very different lists. Dungeon Keeper is one of the more complete ideas in games that Peter Molyneux put out. At this point in time, Bullfrog had been purchased by Electronic Arts. That's probably a reason why. Molyneux wasn't running things at the top of the heap like he had been used to, so he didn't get the same amount of time to hype things up like he was used to. That probably saved us from a lot of interviews that would have promised a game that we didn't get. Now let's talk about what we did get. When this game came out, I happened to work for a store in the United States called CompUSA. Their headquarters was actually here in Dallas in a small suburb called Addison. And I grew up about a mile from their first store. It was a mom and pop shop basically at the time. For my 13th birthday, I took all the money I got and I went and bought a Sound Blaster. And I got home and found a Sound Blaster did not work in my AT&T 6300. That was way too old of a machine. It didn't even have a proper slot for it. There was no drivers for the 8086. I'm sorry, it was an 8088. That would run it. So I took it back, and I think it was about $300 I got. And so I bought games. I bought SimCity. I bought the SimCity graphical add-on packs, the future one and the past. I bought Spellcasting 101, Sorcerers Get All the Girls. I remember being embarrassed by that one because there was a girl on the cover in like a bikini. And I felt dirty buying that game at 13 years old. Probably rightfully so. It's a little bit raunchy in parts, but Steve Maretsky did it, who's really one of the luminaries that came out of Infocom. There will be a video about Spellcasting 101 at some point. I love text adventures. I bought some other games too. But the point is, fast forward from being 13 to 17 and 18, and I was working in the software division at the flagship store in Addison, Texas. It was at the corner of Marsh and Beltline. And I worked in software there. We would get some really cool people in there at times. Being Addison, Texas, a few times John Romero walked in. At the time, he was promoting Daikatana. We know how that went. We would get Dallas Cowboys in there. We would get Dallas Mavericks in there. Specifically, for those of you from the 90s, the Dallas Cowboys at one point had a very famous running back named Emmitt Smith. He came in at one point with his entourage and asked me for a game. He had SimCity 2000, but he was asking. He'd heard that there was an add-on for it that you could do more stuff with your city. So I took him over, and we found Streets of SimCity, which would allow you to load up your SimCity map, and you could drive around in it in a really rudimentary first person. And then there was like, oh, I don't know, there was all the other Sim games, Sim Ant, Sim Island, Sim Earth. I don't think Sim Healthcare was out yet, but that, that is a horrible game, by the way. Anyway, he ended up buying all of them. I remember him getting a shopping cart with every Sim game in it. And I met a lot of people when I worked there. I'll save those stories for another time because this is about Dungeon Keeper. The reason I tell the story about working at CompUSA is I remember the day I walked in. And I remember the day that it was sitting on the shelf. I had just bought a copy of X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter. And I hadn't even installed it, hadn't even opened it yet. And I saw this game, and when I got off my shift, I went home, I got X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter, I went back to the store, I returned it, and I bought Dungeon Keeper instead. The box alone, I mean, you've got the UV covering on it that makes, you got that nice, the sheen, the shine that's on the cover there. The iconic Horny, the Horned Reaper. You had this really cool cover that could open up, and inside you got all these neat screenshots. And because they used kind of the same rudimentary 3D graphics that were in the cutscenes, it kind of felt like you were in the game the whole time you were looking at all this. And then, of course, on the back there, you got your text telling you about all the cool features. I mean, it's promising some really crazy things here. You're playing a top-down strategy game in full 3D, and there's spells where you can actually possess your creature and see out of their eyes and fight as your creature. So then it's kind of like an FPS a little bit at that point. It had full rotation, online multiplayer. It talks about hidden levels, which is something we'll get to in a moment here. The hidden levels have quite a funny story behind them. In the box, I've already opened it up here and taken the things out so you don't have to wait. You get an advertisement for Ultima Online. Never did play that one, but I remember at that time I was working at a Software Etc. And people would come in that were playing this and later EverQuest and talk about all the crazy things that had happened. And I remember always thinking I liked the stories from those games, but I never wanted to play them myself. I didn't have the patience, and the idea of paying a monthly fee for a game just seemed outrageous to me at the time. You get an EA.com pamphlet here. It's a catalog. And, we got some very 90s imagery here with the guy freaking out. This would be a great thumbnail for the YouTube channel. I think I need to scan this and have that. That's totally a YouTube thumbnail. Dungeon Keeper. But we have the UK box, I believe. That's not the US box. Actually, I don't think that was the UK box either. I don't remember it looking like that. Syndicate Wars, which I will be doing a video on Syndicate and Wars. Gene Wars. So far, let's see, we got Theme Hospital. These are all primarily Bullfrog games so far, but then we get over to some Sims like Jane's Longbow and ATF, both of which are in DOSBox, US Navy Fighters, a lot of simulation stuff here. Now we get to the Origin games, because EA had acquired Origin by that time. We got Privateer 2, The Darkening, which is still to this day one of the most difficult games to get emulated properly. It slows down crazy when you approach a planet. And then Wing Commander 4. And then down here you got the Kilrathi Saga. Was that Wing Commander 3? Oh, that was the first 3 games in a compilation pack is what that was. Crusader No Regret. A game that I still to this day, I want to play through it. It throws me off though. I have a hard time with it. I just have never gelled with the controls very well. We got Road Rash back here. Need for Speed Special Edition. Sherlock Holmes and the Rose Tattoo, which is in Exodus. And then some classics. Noctropolis, Privateer, Theme Park, and Ultima 8. All of which... Oh, my box was dusty. All of which are in Exodus. Now, I've made a lot of Exodus videos lately. And sometimes I get people that are watching the video that don't know what Exodus is. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, please go to my channel, look at the videos, and there is a video called What is Exodus? Watch that video. And if you still have questions, leave a comment, and I will definitely answer you. You've got your registration card, which I never sent in. I did not register the game. I don't think I ever registered any game. The whole idea was like you get entered to win something cool. But they always gave away things like hats and t-shirts. And the hats and t-shirts back then were not cool by any means. I would not have gone to high school wearing a ball cap that said Electronic Arts really big on top of it. Not my style. Not knocking you if it's yours. This makes me laugh. This is the Dungeon Keeper reference card. Now, usually a reference card is a card. This reference card is 35 pages long. It's the size of a manual. I mean, as you go through here, it's got, like, of course, the minimum requirements. You've got some controls, but the controls are on 2 different pages. A reference card, part of the goal was you could just glance down and see all your controls at once, not have to flip back and forth through the manual. And then from here, you've got some installation, and the rest of this is all troubleshooting. It is pages and pages of troubleshooting. Really crazy how much... I don't know if they were worried or if the game was that much of a problem at the time. It was probably a problem, and I'll get to why in a moment. Before we get to the manual, there's this little book here. The Dreadful Demise of Derek the Dauntless. This is a little storybook. And it talks about Derek approaching the dungeon. And it kind of sets the stage for the idea of what you're going to be doing in Dungeon Keeper. So, what are you doing in Dungeon Keeper? Well, you're doing a lot. And that's why this manual is... How many pages is this thing? It is huge. It doesn't even have page numbers. Based on size, if this guy here is 33, this is easily 100 pages. Maybe 80? That's a lot. And they're all in use. There's not a lot of extra in here. Oh, there are page numbers, but they're in the table of contents, but not on the page themselves? Hey, look at that. There's 77 pages. I was off by 3 on my second guess. That's funny that they put page numbers because there are no page numbers. Oh, they're hidden in the middle. Look at that. There's these little bitty triangles on the side there. I didn't even see them. So yeah, oh, 79. There are more. 79. 80. There are 80 pages in this book. There are spells. There are rooms. Why? Because in Dungeon Keeper, you are the Dungeon Keeper. In so many games, you, as the good guys, are going underground into dungeons. You're finding treasure. You're killing bad guys. And then you move on to the next dungeon. The idea of Dungeon Keeper is, what if you got to build the dungeon? You dig it out. But then, if you could dig out your own dungeon, how do you get bad guys? Well, you hire them, of course. Or, in this case, you lure them. You create amenities. In the beginning, you're going to have some basic rooms, like a lair, which lets them build a bed. And maybe a hatchery, which hatches little chickens that walk around that the minions in your dungeon can eat. But that's only going to get you some really basic minions. Maybe you need to build a training room at that point. And then from there, you know what? Let's go ahead and fire the game up, and I'll show you the rooms we can build in the game. But before we do, I will say, let me go, because once I start this, it's going to get loud. Dungeon Keeper, if you listen to Peter Molyneux, took 2 years to make. That is a Molyneux lie. They spent 2 years working on it, but it did not take 2 years to make. They actually scrapped the game 4 or 5 months before release because it felt too much like Command and Conquer. And they rebuilt the majority of the game from the ground up in those final months. Bullfrog Games had a real problem with Q&A, quality assurance. They were rarely actually tested, if ever tested. So in games like Syndicate, you had these insane difficulty curves where the developers could beat it because they knew the little cheesy things they could do because they built the damn thing. In Dungeon Keeper, you can get through the core campaign without an insane difficulty curve. But there are hidden levels in the game that you find by finding secret level exits. And the idea is, if you were getting your butt kicked on a level, and you had found and earned the secret levels, you could go back and replay the secret levels. And you could get an enemy from the first level and build him up. And you could find a spell called Transfer Creature. And that would let you take him to the next level. Generally in this game, like a Command and Conquer style game, every time you start a new level, you start from scratch. You start building a dungeon from scratch. You start luring creatures in from scratch. They have to train them back up to get their levels back so they can learn their spells, do all your research. Every time. If you ever played Theme Park or Theme Hospital, or any of these iterative games like that, you start out and you build from the beginning. You could then play Secret Level 2 and continue raising the guy you transferred over, make him even more powerful. And then if you played the level and beat it, you could get a Transfer Creature spell and transfer him out. Ideally, there were 5 secret levels in Dungeon Keeper. And if you played through them, you could come out the other side with a level 10 creature, likely the Horned Reaper. And now, you could transfer him out of the 5th level and go back to the main game level, start that level, and after all this time you did, and beating these levels and transferring them around, you had a big bad dude to help you beat that level. There's a lot of problems with this. First of all, they forgot to enable the Transfer Creature spell in Secret Level 1. It doesn't work. It's on the map, but you can't get to it. So you can play through that level, and you have this amazing level 10 vampire when you beat the level. And he can walk around and stare at the walls until you finish the level, and then he's gone. There is no point to the secret level. You get nothing out of it. There's no bonus. There's no benefit. It's a waste of time. Fast forward to Secret Level 5. They forgot to include it. If you go by the strategy guide, or open the strategy guide on the game here, right-click on it, English Extras. We have the gold version game manual right there, official strategy guide. If we open that strategy guide up, and we go in here, let's see, page down, a little quicker. We're going to look for levels here. Treasures, training rooms. Oh, did I skip past it? We are doing things professional tonight. It's got all the creatures. It's got the creatures, abilities, rooms. Where's the... Oh, there we go. Single player realms. Hidden realms. 222. Almost there. All right. Hidden realm number 1. Okay. Notice that it's not telling you anything about transferring your creature because you can't. It's also a pain in the butt of a level. It's nearly impossible, to be honest. It's very, very difficult. Hidden Realm 2, you got to kill all your imps. Hidden Realm 3, again you have to kill all the imps, but then you can transfer. You notice here it says transfer your Bolted Reaper to the next realm. So now we're talking about the thing that you're supposed to be able to do this whole time. We come down, Hidden Realm number 4. And then finally, Hidden Realm number 5. Look at this. It's in the book. It's not in the game. Now, it's in the code, but they forgot to put the link to Hidden Realm number 5 in the level that's supposed to link to it. It's classic Bullfrog for you. Excuse me. Let's go ahead and fire Bullfrog up here before I go on and on about Peter some more. Wake my laptop up. Now, there was an expansion pack called the Deeper Dungeons. It is included. The Deeper Dungeons is a series of unconnected maps that you can just play. There's no story connecting them. There's no cutscenes. It's just levels to mess with. Or in multiplayer mode, you can use them as match bases. And we do have network multiplayer enabled. You can play up to 4 people, I believe, on this game. It should say right here. Well, let's look. Yeah, 4 people. I thought that was over here on the site information, but I don't see it listed. Let's go pull it back up here. Let's go ahead and fire up the base game. Now there's a really cool CG intro to the game. I have my sound off. Oh, we got the game. There we go. And believe it or not, in 97, this is pretty good looking. Bullfrog did have good animation. Them and Blizzard, I think, my favorite of all the different pre-rendered cutscenes at the time. We have our kick-ass good guy coming in. He's coming to take all the gold, kill all the bad guys. So awkward and slow. Oh, I got flipped off by it at work. Sneak? Nope, didn't work. So clearly we have a badass on our hands here. Uh-oh. These guys were not paying attention. There goes the alarm. You can't build alarm traps in the game, so let you guys know. Yeah, the Bile Demon. Really great workshops for building traps and doors and stuff. He also farts a lot. Doesn't think you're gonna. Oh, Horny has showed up. And dead. You know, there's a lot of parallels here to the Resident Evil intro. I mean, that was FMV with bad acting, but the same ambiance, the sustain that they do there. There's some similarities. We're gonna kick off the. Let's go in here. This is
Eversmile. Set in the realm of joy, the people of Eversmile are plagued only by aching facial muscles, and not anthrax as we had hoped. Eversmile is a disgusting land of good humor and polite frivolity.
One of my favorite things about Dungeon Keeper is the map. We're looking out of a tower, it looks like. We've got like a window here with some nasty vines on it, and we're looking down on this land here. And every time you defeat a kingdom, it rots. And the rot spreads and spreads as you play the game until finally out here is the final level. At that point, the water's turned to lava, there's an acrid smoke, it looks like it's putrid smelling, the world begins to look like hell. There's also some other really cool features. If you play the game on a night that has a full moon, then Secret Level 6 appears, and you can play against 3 AI Dungeon Keepers at the same time. It's only there on full moon nights. Let's see, what else? If you do unlock a secret level, it stays on the map, so you can go back to it anytime you want. Let's kick in here to the first level. The flaming CD of loading. Alright, so this is our dungeon heart. And it's telling us that we're going to need a place to put our treasure. This is the message, right click to delete it. We're going to come right over here to this room that's already been given to us. And I'm just going to lay out treasure room. Now, the imps can put everything we mine in there. Now that treasure room is not nearly big enough for me, so I'm going to click. And that tells my imps to dig that area out. Now right now I've only got 3 imps. Actually, I'm going to spell them out. Let's check this out. I am now an imp. Weird troll. I need help. Back out of that. You see, I was actually laying down tiles while I was doing it. So you guys run around a tile. Now they're going to start fortifying your walls. Good guys can dig into your base and get your stuff. So these walls have been fortified. They have stone on them. Right now, as he's doing his little magic dance on that wall, he's trying to put stone up on the wall. Now he's moving kind of slow for me, so that's going to speed him up. He's going about twice as fast now. Wake up. Come on, get going. Now, they do take a little damage when you do that. We'll heal up. Notice if the wall's been fortified, it changes with the tile next to it. An unfortified wall stays looking dark. A room is actually more efficient if its walls are fortified. The library, for example, a room that you can research, has bookshelves on the walls, and bookshelves can be used by your wizards as a station to research for you. Now what we need is gold for our room. So let's drag all that out. Now our imps are going to start digging over here, loading up with gold. When their stack gets full, they'll run back over here and deposit it in the treasury, at which point my money goes up. Our dungeon heart is our core. If this gets attacked, it starts shrinking. If it's destroyed, we lose and we're out of the game. I really love the narrator of this game. He's got such a great voice. There was around 2010, 2011, there was a Kickstarter for a game called War for the Overworld. And it's kind of a spiritual successor to this. There is a Dungeon Keeper 2 that was for Windows only. Let me turn this down a bit if you don't mind.
You've tunneled into a new area.
Dungeon Keeper 2 on Windows is not quite as it's not as stable in some ways, but it has a lot of great features. I think in a lot of ways I do like it a little bit more. It has a better late game to it. Now we're going to go ahead and dig out this area down here. You generally want at least a 3x3, but a 4x4 or a 5x5 is even better. Now, when we dug to get that gold out, we got tricked. We got opened up into this water area. Now that, I think, is so that we can't fortify our dungeon to the point that the good guys can't get in. We need a layer. So I'm going to put the layer down here. If we put it over here, it's not as effective because we have water. That said, there are, I believe, in later levels, if you build a layer next to water, there's recipes in this game. If you build certain ways. You put a layer next to water, and I think it's a training room next to water, then you can actually get a fairly hard to find bad guy called the Tentacle. This little tentacle will crawl out of the water and live in your dungeon with you. Now there's a few cool enemies like that in the game that are very rare, and you can play the game for quite a while and never see them. Let's go and get our layer built while our imps run around fortifying things. Now, it's telling us to dig a tunnel to connect the portal. Here on the map, up in the top here, you can see that we have this glowing thing right there. That is a portal that the bad guys can come out of. So by claiming this portal, right now it's unclaimed, you can tell by the rainbow going around it. And that's important. If you're playing multiplayer, there are only so many portals. And each portal can only call in so many bad guys, or minions. So if there are 3 portals in the map and you can get to 2 of them, you're going to have more people in your dungeon than the other guy has. That's pretty key when it comes to trying to beat him. That said, there's lots of ways he can lure your guys to his dungeon. He could have a nicer dungeon.
An entrance has been claimed.
He could, later there's a really cool room called the Temple. Oh no, I'm sorry, the Scrying Room. It looks like little eyeballs. The vampires love it. And if they work in that room, they whisper. And they get in the heads of the creatures of the enemy keepers. And if they go long enough, they can lure them to leave their dungeon and come live with you. Now if we come here, we just gotta fly. He's our first creature. He's already off. They like to explore. They're almost useless in terms of attacking. Let's see, he's already built his little home right there. Now, certain creatures don't like other creatures. Spiders don't like flies. Vampires don't like warlocks. There's quite a few other combinations that don't like each other. In those cases, if they live next to each other, they will start attacking each other. Or one will get mad and leave. We got a beetle now. But our guys are going to get hungry soon. So let's take this dinky little room that we got over here, make it a little bigger, and put a hatchery in there. That way these guys can get fed. Now, we can make imps. We just double from 3 imps to 6 imps. I can tell how many I have by going to my creature page And I can see I've got 6 imps. They are all working. If they're fighting, they'll show up here, and if they're doing nothing, they'll show up here. Now, if I've got someone who's doing nothing, I can click on it, and I'm holding them. I can pick up all my guys I want, and I can drop them anywhere I want. Really important. If a good guy shows up in my dungeon, and I don't want him there, I can go pick up my bad guys, drop them on top of them. Now, a big part of Bullfrog games... Oh, see the little chickens here? And then if you slap a chicken, pile of feathers and blood. Bullfrog management games love to have research in them. And it adds a lot to the game. It gives you something to work towards in your game. So eventually you would get a library. And libraries will attract warlocks and dragons. Dragons are really good at research. Warlocks are too. And they were a lot more spells for you. I mean, the spells you get can be, like right now we've got possession and imps. You can get healing, you can get turn enemy into chickens, you can get, oh, intruders are already on their way. So we're gonna go on the map here, we can see they're out here. We can't see them, but we can hear them. They're digging around, they're gonna try to get to our dungeon. Now eventually they're gonna get up to the reinforced walls, and they're not gonna be able to get through them. So they're going to start going around the walls looking for a weak spot. Eventually, they're going to get over to the water here, and they're going to be able to come in right here. So we know this is going to be where the good guys get into our dungeon. Anyway, on the spell side, there's you can cause avalanches, you can cause you can do disease, you can do a flag that calls all your troops to that area. Like if you're getting attacked, you can call the troops, rally the troops, and they'll come in. There's lightning attacks. There's a lot of stuff. Now you can also get a workshop. The workshop will allow you to start building things. So I can build doors to go between these areas. Doors are great for slowing down the good guys, so that when they do come walking in the dungeon, they can't walk straight up to your dungeon heart. You can also build traps. You build alarms, poison traps, electric traps, boulder traps. Pretty neat stuff. Later on, there was a game that's kind of influenced by called Evil Genius. In Evil Genius, you're almost like a James Bond villain. You build like an evil lair, like on a volcanic island. On the top level, payday. I'll come right back to that. You have to pay your good guy, your minions, or they will leave. They will get irritated, and if a minion gets irritated, either because they're not getting food, they're not getting paid, they're in the company of a minion that they don't like, or because of the Horned Reaper and those douchebags just get irritated because they have to survive. They're like Mr. Meeseeks from Rick and Morty. They don't want to be alive. You bring them into this world and all they want to do is leave. So, Horny's your best bet is to like build their own...
Your creatures are under attack.
Okay.
Your creatures are attacking the enemy.
Yeah. Flies over here fighting. The beetles are doing nothing. Here they go. And if there's too many...
Your creatures are falling in battle.
We've got too many guys from them. The other ones they can't fight, go stand on the outside.
Your minions are winning a battle.
And the little flower around
Your minions are winning a battle.
Look at all that blood. The little flowers will help. And so now the ones that got hurt can go back, they can eat, they can rest, they'll heal up again. The number is their level. Here we can't do too much, but later on you'll get a training room. This chicken is so loud. And the training room will allow them to level up. You can see right here, he lost one of his little bars, and he is healed. Now he's almost full.
Beware, the Lord of the Land approaches.
We shall send you back to the pit, foul one!
Your creatures are attacking the enemy.
Yeah, maybe leave him alone. Let's get all these guys. And we can't... Let's see here. The quickest way is to do that. Let's get the minion and drop him there to give him the You guys can move. Get our army moving here. Now my minions are going to start claiming this territory. And they're heading right towards the Lord of the Land. But I'd rather fight him not in my base, because in the worst case scenario...
Your creatures are under attack.
He'd be right next to my dungeon heart. Now...
Your creatures are attacking the enemy.
And he has no chance. It's first level. I'll probably lose one or two of my bad guys, but once you beat the level and you go to the next level, you don't get to take anyone with you. So, not super useful. Now when they're fighting, I'm going to pull up the room list here. Let's see here. Oh, I almost got him.
Your minions are winning a battle.
bleeding.
You have conquered this realm.
I got to pass out, and maybe eventually he's still dying. That was the most dramatic death ever. Now at this point, we've beat the level. You can stay around. You can keep building out your dungeon. You can see if there's any secrets to find. There are some levels that have secrets, like if you were to dig way out to the corner, you might find a secret. This level's not one of them. We hit space and we get our stats. We also...
Branna Hawk. War and anthrax have taken to this land like fleas to a rat. The region is, thanks to your unstinting efforts, now a major eyesore.
Now, to go back to what I talked about before, about their QA. They got several of the prologues and epilogues switched around. So they will introduce a level and call it like... Oh, did they even have the names on here? Let's say it's called Smileville, and then you'll beat Smileville, and the epilogue will say, Granahawk. Granahawk has been defeated. Like, what? I just took out Smilehaven. So there is an open source version of this out there called Keeper FX. It does require the original game files, which happen to be in Exodus if you need them. It does a lot of stuff. It cleans up a lot of bugs in the game. It fixes the bonus levels and adds the transfer creature spells to them. It puts them in the right order. It re-enables the one that got left out. Excuse me. It fixes the epilogues and the prologues and puts them on the right levels. It does a lot of things that basic Q&A would have done, had Bullfrog done that. Now, if we go to the room list I mentioned earlier, you've got the treasure room. We saw that. The lair, we saw that. The hatchery, we saw. Library, I've expressed to you. That's where we're going to research. Now, that's an important room, because if you lose it, you can lose your spells, too. And, I guess we didn't see this. If you're fighting against somebody else, not just the good guys, but another keeper, their minions can claim your territory. So, it becomes kind of a tug-of-war, to a certain degree. They're trying to push your enemies back enough that their minions can come in behind them and start cleaning all your tiles. And if they get to your rooms, they can actually take an entire room from you. Then, of course, any tile that they own, they can drop enemies on. So it allows them to drop people closer to your territory than they would have otherwise. The spells we did are based on mana. You get mana for every square that you have claimed. So the bigger your empire is, the quicker you generate mana. That can be really key in the beginning of a game too. You can't turtle in these games. It really is important to, off the bat, dig out your area, claim as much land as you can, and then try to fortify it before they show up. They being the other guy. Because once there is an opening, if you want to turtle and you want to build up and have like level 10 guys before you get out there, you got to grab enough land in the beginning to A, support this giant army you're about to start training. B, have a great resource of gems or gold. If it's gold, gold runs out over time. You saw we had that little seam of about 9 blocks of gold on that first level. Once it was gone, it was gone. There was no more money on that level. So had I kept playing and not ended the level, after some amount of time, I would have run out of cash because of paydays. And then at that point, the enemies that I had raised would have left. So if you're doing a long-term multiplayer game against another keeper or the AI... Sorry. My voice is definitely getting rough tonight. You have to plan ahead and think, do I have enough resources here to support a long-term game? If the map only has a small seam of gold, you need to get to it and claim it. Because every bit of gold you get is gold they don't get. Now, there are gems. They are purple shiny spots on the map. Those are unlimited money if you can mine them. But you mine them much slower than regular gold. So they can last a lot longer, but you can't build up your stash from them quite as fast. There's the training room, which was mentioned. You can get yourself up to a level 5 or 4. I think it's 4. There is a max level in the training room, and any fighting after that, any leveling after that, you have to get from actual combat out against the other, either the good guys or the other keepers. There's bridges, which are for crossing water, but there's wooden bridges and stone bridges. Actually, the stone bridge might be Dungeon Keeper 2 only. I think it's only wooden bridges in DK1. There's a guard post, which is basically you can drop one of your enemies there, or one of your minions there, and he will stay there and look out for enemies. There is a dark elf you can get who's especially good at that. He's got really long eyesight. He's got a sniper bow. If you possess him, you can headshot people and get mucho damage. You got a workshop, and that's where you can build all your traps and your doors. The barracks are a place where you can... it's kind of a useless room in my opinion. You can drop all your bad guys, your minions in there. I keep calling them bad guys because they are, but that also sounds like the other guys' minions. So I will try to call your people minions and their people bad guys. You can drop your minions in there, and they're supposed to like kind of group up. And then you can go into first-person mode and look at them all and say, follow me. And then you can march in, and they will be behind you like an army. So the barracks is just kind of a gathering zone. The prison is pretty cool. If you have a prison and you turn prisoning on, your minions will not kill the bad guys. They will incapacitate them. They will have one little life bar left. At that point, your imps will try to go grab them and drag them back to your prison. Once they get to your prison, they'll be very weak. Now, you can feed them by giving them some of your chickens, and that will raise their health up again. If you leave them in there long enough, they will die, and they will come back as skeletons who will fight for you. Skeletons can level up pretty quick. You can get a lot of level 10 skeletons, but they're pretty weak at the same time. And once they're dead, they're gone. You can also save them in your prison for the next room, which is the torture chamber. If you get the torture chamber, what you want to do is you want to make your minion healthy. I'm sorry, your prisoner healthy. Put them in the torture chamber. And if you have the, what are they called? It's like a dominatrix. The Mistress of Evil, I believe was what they call her in the game. She loves that room. She'll hang out in there. She'll whip them. You know, she has fun. And you can get all kinds of stuff from them. You can convert them to work for you. You can get them to reveal parts of the map to you. Or they can just die in there and come back as ghosts. If they come back as a ghost, again, not the most powerful creature, but they move fast. They can float over lava, so there's some benefits to them. After the torture chamber, you've got the temple. The temple is a really strange room. It's expensive as crap. However, you can sacrifice your minions in the temple by dropping them in the little pit in the center of it. And sacrificing different combinations of minions will get you different bonuses. Now, if you do it wrong, though, you can piss off the gods, and they will make your minions upset. They will do other negative bonuses to you. So, there's some guides out there that will tell you what to sacrifice to get different kinds of cool creatures. Then you got the graveyard. If you have a graveyard and anyone dies, they will get dragged to the graveyard, and then over time they will decompose. And after enough enemies or even your people have decomposed in the graveyard, a vampire will rise. The really cool thing about a vampire is, let's say you have a level 5 vampire. If they die, they turn into a puff of smoke and they appear back in their coffin in the lair. And they're level 4 now. So instead of them falling on the ground and having to be... So normally if one of your guys gets killed, they'll be really hurt. And so your minion can go grab them, your imps, and pull them back to their lair, and they'll be revived there. They can wake back up again. The vampire just goes back, and he just loses a level. And so a level 10 vampire can die like 10 times. So, and because they just appear back in their base, they're great for defending your dungeon core. Then there's a scavenger room. I mentioned that during the gameplay. The vampires love that room. It's a bunch of eyeballs, and they hang out in there, and they try to lure enemy minions to your side. And then finally, you can sell rooms too if you need your money back. In the spells, you got possessed creatures, create imps. Sight of Evil shows you part of the map. Speed Monster makes your monsters faster. Great for casting on your researchers or the people that are training. They train faster, they research faster. Must Obey can be used on a creature who's misbehaving or is rampaging. Must Obey can be cast on him, but you're taking a mana cost every second that that's active. Call to Arms pulls them all in. Conceal Monster supposedly makes them invisible, but I don't think I've ever used that because I don't think the AI honors it. The AI doesn't do a lot of things. The AI can have a prison, but it will never imprison your creatures. It doesn't know how to. It doesn't ever turn prisoning on. So, yeah, QA again for you. Hold Audience pulls everyone together. You can heal, Lightning Strike. Protect creature, puts like armor on them. So if you got a big battle going, you can heal them, protect them, turn the other guy into a chicken. You can really shift the tide of a battle, but you can only cast spells on your own territory. You can turn them into a chicken. You can cause a cave-in, which is like an avalanche. You can spread disease. Now, disease is interesting because if you catch one of their guys with a disease and he goes back to his base, it spreads and everyone in their whole base becomes sick. Vice versa, if one of your guys comes home with an STD, they all got the STD. And then, of course, finally, there are two last spells, the big bad guys. One is Destroy Walls. That destroys a fortified wall. It lets you get through. You get that at the end game. And then the other one is called Armageddon. Armageddon is a spell that basically pulls everybody into your dungeon core across the map, and a big-ass battle takes place. Last man standing wins. It can be used to end a fight when everyone's scattered and you're trying to hunt down the last people, but you don't cast it unless you're really sure that you're going to win. Now, you've stared at the statistics screen long enough. We're going to click OK here. Exo just got 8th place. And we've destroyed that area.
Cozyton, a hideous sham of a town in which the prosperous citizens have no gripes or moans. Sadly, even the children are happy.
Now, what we're going to do real quick here, we're going to go ahead and fire up a multiplayer game. We'll go ahead and say, actually, oh, I remember now. We're going to quit. We're going to do the deeper dungeons. That lets you have a sandbox mode where you can actually just play against the AI and mess around. Let's see, deeper dungeons. I thought, wasn't there a sandbox mode here? Is it multiplayer? No. I do see that they got rid of no modem. Or no, dial-up modem's gone now. Serial and IPX is only here. Bullfrog has an interesting history with multiplayer. When I do the Syndicate video, it'll be... That game was always meant to be multiplayer, and then it was stripped at the last second. It looks like... I can't... Let's pick a deeper dungeon here. Abaddon sounds cool. I don't have a lot of experience with deeper dungeons. Okay, keep up. Oh, I remember this level. Not an easy one. Oh boy, so we got... This is all... There's the purple one, that's our gems. Here's our gold. 2 things. Clearly a secret's back here, but it's probably protected by some kind of trap. So what we're going to do is go ahead and come out. Make our first room. Let's see, that's a 5. Now,
You have traveled into a new area.
Notice how fast they're moving. So they're level 10 imps, or at least some of them are. Level 4. Level 4 imps get a speed spell. Now if I possess one of them, you'll see down in the bottom left here, he's got 1, 2, and 3. So 1 is going to be his, I hit 1, I can mine. If I hit 2, I can stab. If I hit 3, I go fast. I'm going to leave his head now. And what do they find? Oh boy, there's some kind of door thing going on here.
An entrance has been claimed.
Interesting. Alright, go knock this out, guys. This is going to be our lair. Oh. You didn't give me a lair. come up here and see what happens. Hopefully there's not a boulder trap or something waiting up here, because this will wipe your guys out.
You've traveled into a new area. Your creatures are under attack.
Oh my goodness. Level 6, level 3, and level 5. I have nobody. Yeah, let's keep going. Okay. Well, we're not going to get far with that one. We're going to go ahead and throw that in the trash. They're putting me in a position here where I got no bad guys. I mean, no minions to help. Very, very dungeon keeping. So, like, well, I should have saved. I'm dead now. Those guys are going to head right to my base. Oh, well. The goal of firing that up was to just try to show you some of the later rooms in the game. But honestly, a Dungeon Keeper game is not short. Never short. It's going to take a while anytime you play it. Even if you know exactly what you're doing and you're bum rushing it, you're in for at least an hour. I cannot tell you how many times I've turned the game on thinking I'll play one level and hours go by. And I did play that level, but I am a completionist, constructionist. I want to build everything in the level. I want to fortify every wall. I want to put traps everywhere. If I could decorate the level, I would. I love the idea of being evil. The game is one of my favorites, despite the fact that Peter Molyneux made it, despite the fact that it is unfinished in a lot of ways. It is unique. It's different. It's everything I love about PC games. It's strategy, it's action, it's imaginative. It allows me to do things I can't do on a console. Games like this did not exist back, let's see, we're talking 97 here? The PlayStation and the Saturn did not have games like this. Ironically, the game was in development for both those consoles, but it was canceled. So, I'll wrap the video up by explaining what happened. So Peter Molyneux went out to a bar, got drunk, wrote a resignation letter on his email, and then sent it in. Retroactively, he will claim that his buddy hit the send button. His buddy goaded him into do it. He never intended to resign. He was just venting by writing the email. I don't know why you would write a resignation email. Enter your boss's name in it and have no intention of sending it. It's classic Molyneux. It's revisionist. But the fact is, he resigned. Now, he wanted to continue, even though he said he resigned, he wanted to finish the game. And EA said, no, you resigned. Get out. So the team came to Peter's house and they kept working on it there. I think the game may have been better for it because it put EA in direct control of when it was being released, how it was being released, how it was marketed, who was marketing it. I mentioned Dungeon Keeper 2 earlier, and I think in many ways it's a better game. And it's because Peter Molyneux, for all of his faults, is a great idea man. He has no business coding, and he has no business marketing. He can make design documents all day long if he wants to. He can pitch ideas all day long if he wants to. But DK2 ended with a trailer teasing Dungeon Keeper 3. You can go check. Dungeon Keeper 3 never came out. Now, in 2014, there was a really poor quality mobile release Dungeon Keeper. It's horrible. I don't even want to get into it. It is a black mark on the history of the franchise. But I think that this original Dungeon Keeper that came out in the summer of 97, for me, it's easily in my top 5 MS-DOS games. There are days of the week it would be my number 1, depending on what mood I'm in. And I think that says a lot when you're dealing with, we have over 7,600 games in Exodus version 6. Hundreds of those were really great commercial releases. I spent hours and hours with many of them. And for any game to crack the top 50, top 10, top 5 is a huge, impressive achievement. So Peter Molyneux and his team deserve credit for what they did create. It could have been better, but in hindsight, almost anything can be better. We're lucky that it exists, that it came out, and it kind of created an entire genre of its own. There was the game I mentioned earlier, War for the Overworld. There are several dungeon games on Steam that take the idea of Dungeon Keeper. For me, none of them quite capture the feeling of this one. I think it's the perverse sense of humor that is existent in Bullfrog games. But with all that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. I appreciate your patience as I talk through it. Thank you for watching.